Modern day pro wrestling.
Don't tell me what the I can't say and what I can say. I want to talk to these people.
Yeah, it's not everybody's cup of tea, and while most things have very little to do with being better for the fans, there are some things that could be considered an improvement from the good old days. Honestly, it took me a little while to come up with 5, but I'm finally ready to give credit where credit is due. Questionable copyright claims notwithstanding. So, here's 5 reasons pro wrestling is better in 2025. It's not necessarily all of them, just 5 of them, though it's probably all of them for most people. And number 1, merch. Today, if a fan wants to buy a t-shirt or some other item to show support for their favorite wrestler, all they have to do is jump online, and a few clicks later, their stuff is on the way. If you have a few extra dollars to spend, you can even get a replica championship belt just like the ones you see the champions with on TV. Heck, even announcers have merch these days, and there is plenty of stuff for days gone by if that's the kind of thing you like. If a fan wants to deck himself out to go to an event, or just display their love of wrestling in their everyday life, there is easy access to plenty of merch. In the territory days, it wasn't quite as easy. A fan might come across a mail order offer from time to time and put their trust in the U.S. Postal Service to get a shirt 2 months later. Otherwise, the only place to get merch was at the matches, usually only the weekly or monthly house shows. Most of the merch was 8x10 photos, but there would be t-shirts or some other items. If your only access to pro wrestling was television, you probably never knew there was merch, but that Pro Wrestling Illustrated t-shirt looked great on you. Number 2, health of the wrestlers. Years ago, pro wrestlers put their bodies through a lot for the fans. When things went outside the ring in those days, it usually went onto concrete or hardwood floors with actual metal ring posts holding up the ring itself. The argument could certainly be made that wrestlers back then came from a different mold, and they did. At the same time, it was hard to watch a lot of those wrestlers have such a hard time getting around in later years, with many of them not having later years, with early deaths for a variety of reasons. While pro wrestling is still physical, and in some cases purposely made more dangerous, a typical match is much less harsh on the wrestlers' bodies. Padding around the ring and ring posts that are far more forgiving are just 2 of the reasons why. Thanks to better understanding of concussions, most chair shots are no longer to the head, and programs within bigger companies have curbed dangerous drug use and will likely add years to the wrestlers' lives. The wrestlers still put themselves at risk in the ring, but the risk is more controlled these days. And number 3, safety of the heels. And today, heels in pro wrestling live in something of a gray area, with only a few things similar to what it was like being a heel during the territory days. Modern day heels are known to do autograph signings and other public appearances. Even some of the top-selling merch is centered on heels. That's a far cry from the territory days when there was very little merch for heels and little to no planned interaction between heels and fans. With some fans thinking it was all real, there was very good reason for all that, as some heels might not have made it out of an autograph signing, at least not without going to jail. At different times, both Ole Anderson and Roddy Piper were stabbed by fans as they made their way to the ring. Jim Garvin's valet Precious was once abducted and taken out a side door by 4 men in an event, though luckily they didn't get far. One fan in New Orleans came to a card with a loaded gun and actually tried to kill one of the Fabulous Freebirds during an angle with Junkyard Dog. Forget about autographs and merch, heels were often taking their life in their own hands just being a heel, and with little help or security offered by promotions. And number 4, show me the money. Prior to the 1990s, when guaranteed contracts started becoming a thing, wrestlers were paid according to the money that was brought in for a card. So, the more fans in attendance, the bigger the payout to the wrestlers. For the biggest stars in the business, like Andre the Giant and Ric Flair, it could mean a weekly payout in tens of thousands of dollars. Even mid-carders could make several $1,000s for bigger cards. On the opposite side of that coin, they could come away with as little as $50, and that's with paying their own expenses. Today, there is more financial security for wrestlers up and down the card. If there is a sold-out arena or they barely draw 100 people, the wrestlers are going to make the same. There are some drawbacks to that, as it gives less incentive to wrestlers to perform better and thus draw in bigger crowds, but from the wrestler's perspective, it is certainly a positive. Even today, wrestlers are expected to handle a lion's share of their expenses and have to pay for their own gear. it's hard not to count financial stability for people putting their bodies on the line as a positive. And number 5, women on top. While a lot of benefits and drawbacks to modern pro wrestling as compared to the territory days can be debated to an extent, there is little to no doubt women's pro wrestling is in its golden age. Despite the fact that there were featured stars like Mildred Burke and Fabulous Moolah in the early days, women's wrestling was treated as a sideshow for years, often being referred to simply as the girls during a rundown of a card. There were flashes of women working their way to the forefront in the 80s and 90s, but it was always pushed back in favor of eye candy. The seed of a new day for women's wrestling came from TNA when Dutch Mantell took over their Knockouts division. The rise of Gail Kim, Awesome Kong, and the Beautiful People, sprinkled with established stars like Mickie James, made the women's division the primary thing to watch in TNA for a time. WWE took note, and soon after, the likes of Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, and Alexa Bliss were signed to NXT. Since then, every major promotion has a women's division peppered with multiple stars. Women have main evented the biggest cards of the year and blazed trails in Saudi Arabia. You've come a long way, baby. Well, I hope you enjoyed this edition of 5 Things. Feel free to use the comment section if you have anything to add. If you'd like to see more 5 Things videos, you can click the link to the playlist on the end screen, or check out one of the other videos on the channel. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, not necessarily in that order, and I will see you next time.